In world history, the civilizations of Central and South America, though developing later than those in other parts of the world, are by no means less fascinating. One of the most famous civilizations in this region is the Aztec civilization, which flourished in central Mexico and lasted from the 14th century to the 16th century. When mentioning the Aztecs, many immediately picture stone pyramids, colorful feathered attire, and infamous human sacrifices. What makes the history and culture of the Aztecs so intriguing? Let us explore this through the following account. Much like the civilizations across the Pacific that originated in river plains and gradually spread outward, the Aztec civilization took root in Mesoamerica. However, while China or Egypt cultivated grains like rice or wheat, the primary product of the Mesoamerican land was maize. Alongside core crops such as maize, beans, and squash, the inhabitants of these lands also grew tomatoes, cacao, and potatoes. The first major civilization to emerge in Mesoamerica was the Olmec, appearing around 1200 before the Common Era. Remarkably skilled sculptors. They also practiced ritual sacrifice, cultural traits that would later influence both the Maya region and the Valley of Mexico. After the decline of the Olmec civilization, several city-states gradually developed, with the Maya civilization being the most prominent. Following the gradual decline of the Maya, Mesoamerica entered a period of cultural stagnation, though technology and warfare continued to advance. During this period, a major civilization known as the Toltecs emerged, highly revered by the later Aztecs. Eventually, the Toltec civilization also entered a period of decline. Many often mistake the Maya and Aztec civilizations as one and the same. In reality, the Aztecs did not appear until the 13th century, long after the decline of the Maya had begun. For various reasons, the inhabitants of the Aztec civilization in particular, and Mesoamerica in general, developed technology much later than civilizations in Asia or Europe. Some causes include rugged mountainous terrain, a lack of metal deposits, and limited cultural exchange, which hindered rapid development. This slower development, combined with discord among different tribes, was also the primary reason why the Aztecs were later easily defeated by the Spanish colonizers. The Aztecs relied primarily on agriculture. Their main crops included maize, beans, squash, potatoes, tomatoes, avocados, pineapples, cacao, and tobacco, with maize being their primary staple food. The humid environment of the Valley of Mexico, with its numerous lakes and marshes, allowed for intensive agriculture. Particularly vital to agricultural production in the valley was the construction of chinampas on the lakes. These artificial islands allowed shallow waters to be converted into fertile gardens that could be cultivated year-round. Chinampas were artificial extensions of agricultural land created from alternating layers of mud from the lake bed, organic matter, and other vegetation. These raised beds were separated by narrow canals, allowing farmers to navigate between them using canoes. The chinampas were incredibly fertile plots, yielding an average of 7 harvests annually. Based on current chinampa productivity, it is estimated that 1 hectare of chinampa could sustain about 20 people. The Aztecs optimized agricultural production with artificial irrigation systems. Most farms were located on the outskirts of major cities. When the city of Tenochtitlan became a major urban center, numerous aqueducts were constructed to bring water from rivers, lakes, and springs into the city, and a waste collection system was established to create fertilizer. Through intensive agriculture, the Aztecs were able to sustain a large population. Lakes and ponds also provided a rich source of food in the form of aquatic animals such as fish, amphibians, shrimp, insects, insect eggs, and waterfowl. This abundance of wild food sources meant that the Aztecs kept few domesticated chickens or dogs. This plentiful food supply allowed a significant portion of the Aztec population to specialize in trades other than food production. Women, in addition to cooking, wove cloth from maguey or cotton fibers. Men worked in crafts, producing pottery, tools made of obsidian and flint, beadwork, featherwork, and crafting tools and musical instruments. The Aztecs did not produce much metal but possessed a basic knowledge of metallurgy, working with metals such as gold, which they combined with precious stones like jade and turquoise. To the Aztecs, gold was the most important metal because they regarded it as sacred, a reward bestowed by the sun god. In Aztec society, the highest social class was the nobility, known as the Pippleton. Pippleton status was hereditary, and they held certain privileges, such as the right to wear elaborate clothing, consume luxury goods, and own land. The most powerful nobles were called lords, or Tenochtitlan. They owned and controlled estates or noble lands and could serve in the highest positions of government or military leadership. The nobility made up only about 5% of the population. The second class was the Maeshualtin, originally peasant farmers. They eventually formed the lower working class, comprising about 20% of the population, focusing on agricultural and food production. The remaining 80% consisted of warriors, artisans, and merchants. Most Maeshualtin produced handicrafts, and their work was an important source of income for the cities. If commoners had to sell themselves into service to a noble due to debt or poverty, they became tlacotin, or slaves. Commoners could rise to nobility by proving their capability in war. When a warrior captured a prisoner, he was permitted to wear specific attire, carry certain weapons, and bear insignia that displayed his status. As he captured more prisoners, his rank and prestige rose accordingly. The Aztecs traced descent through both the paternal and maternal lines equally, and inheritance was passed down to both sons and daughters. This meant that women had property rights equal to men, granting them greater economic independence. However, Aztec society still clearly defined gender roles. Men typically worked outside the home as farmers, merchants, and artisans, and warriors, while women usually managed domestic affairs. Women could also choose to become small-scale merchants, healers, priests, or midwives. Warfare was highly valued in Aztec society. Childbirth for women was regarded with as much importance as warfare, deemed necessary to maintain the balance of the world and please the gods. The Aztec military was not just about conventional violence, it was also a religious activity. When fighting, soldiers prioritized capturing enemies alive for later sacrificial rituals rather than killing them. Nobles and generals wore bright armor so that their deeds on the battlefield would not be forgotten. The equipment of an Aztec warrior typically included a round shield and a wooden sword studded with sharp obsidian blades, called a macuahuitl. Some warriors were also equipped with bows and arrows, but the majority used spears and other close combat weapons. Their armor was usually made of thick, quilted cotton, capable of deflecting primitive weapons. Every man in the Aztec Empire received military training from youth, with those of the noble class training more rigorously in combat and leadership. Religion played a vital role in Aztec warfare. Before commencing a campaign, they spent 60 days in preparation, performing rituals to seek the blessings of the gods. Upon victory, they would enter the enemy's temple and extinguish the sacred fire, a symbolic act to assert the dominance of the Aztec war god. Compared to other civilizations in the region, such as the Inca and Maya, the Aztecs left behind a smaller yet equally distinctive heritage. They were one of the first cultures to implement compulsory education for all children. They possessed a system of pictographic and phonetic writing that was relatively structured, though it remained in a primitive stage rather than a complete writing system. Had the Spanish not invaded, it is highly likely that the Aztec pictographs would have eventually evolved into a true writing system. Aztec astronomical knowledge was also highly advanced. Their Zhu calendar was more accurate than the modern Gregorian calendar. Under this system, a year was divided into 365 days, consisting of 18 months of 20 days each, with 5 supplementary days added at the end of the year. Another calendar, the tonal Lai, was used for divinatory purposes. Every 52 years, the two calendars aligned, marking the beginning of a new cycle. This event was known as the New Fire Ceremony. On this day, all fires were extinguished, and after a human sacrifice was performed, a fresh fire lit on the victim was carried to every home. The Aztec civilization was heavily influenced by the declined Toltec civilization, and the Aztecs were passionate admirers of Toltec art and craftsmanship. The Aztecs not only strived to preserve the culture of their predecessors, but also elevated it to new heights. Within the city of Tenochtitlan, residents organized poetry, recitations, and competitions with many participants. Aztec poetry was diverse, featuring several genres. Aztec painting was also notable, with illustrations executed on animal skins, carved into stone, wood, and even ceramics. Using a palette of black ink, red tones, and bright colors, they depicted religious, historical, and daily scenes. Their pottery was decorated with intricate patterns on black and orange backgrounds. Even after being ravaged by war and disease, this cultural tradition continued to be passed down. Another unique art form was feather painting, which was extremely complex, earning featherwork artisans high respect. Aside from mastering the technique of securing feathers with cord, they used a layering technique, assembling tiny feathers from various bird species. Due to the difficulty of preserving feathers, fewer than 10 original Aztec featherwork pieces survive today. The most infamous aspect of Aztec culture to the public is their practice of human sacrifice. To understand the purpose of this ritual, one must understand that in the Aztec worldview, the gods constantly died and were reborn to keep the universe and all creation going. Therefore, human sacrifice was meant to provide additional energy to sustain the life of the universe, ensuring the sun would continue to rise. For them, nothing was more glorious than dying in battle or being sacrificed to the gods. The victims chosen for sacrifice were usually prisoners of war captured in battle. There were various methods of sacrifice, but the most common was stretching the victim over a sacrificial stone, cutting open the chest with a flint or marble knife, and tearing out the heart to offer to the gods. All warriors believed that dying this way would allow them to become birds serving the sun god in his paradise. The Aztecs held 18 major festivals a year, and they typically performed human sacrifices during these festive occasions. The pinnacle of Aztec civilization lay in their ability to construct and design monumental works of architecture. They utilized materials such as volcanic stone, limestone, and wood. Most prominent was the capital city of Tenochtitlan, also known fully as Mexico Tenochtitlan, a vast cultural, political, and religious hub with a dense population and impressive architectural structures. Built on an island in Lake Texcoco, the city was surrounded by canals and connected to the mainland by causeways. The Aztecs used vast amounts of gold to decorate temples with images of stars and animals such as dragonflies, butterflies, and birds. Gigantic towers and pyramids rose from the water, astonishing the Spanish when they first arrived. A Spanish soldier recalled, "We were amazed by the sight of the great towers and pyramids rising from the water, all built of stone. Some soldiers even wondered if this was a dream." The Spanish were also deeply impressed by Tenochtitlan's botanical gardens, zoos, and aquariums. The Aztecs turned marshes into lush gardens, which housed various reptiles, and their aquariums, consisting of 10 saltwater ponds and 10 freshwater ponds, were home to many species of birds and fish. Thanks to these gardens and efficient agricultural systems, Tenochtitlan could feed a large portion of its population even when the city was disrupted by war and pestilence. Within the city, people traveled via canals and streets. The main roads leading into the city were built with wooden drawbridges that could be quickly dismantled in the event of an attack. At the heart of Tenochtitlan was the Great Temple, the Templo Mayor, a colossal pyramid with steps leading to 2 shrines at the summit, one dedicated to the rain god Tlaloc and the other to the war god Huitzilopochtli. This was the venue for major festivals and critical sacrificial ceremonies. The temple was built and expanded 6 times, reaching a height of 100 meters, making it one of the largest structures in the world at the time. Lacking draft animals for transport, waterways served as the primary means of transportation in the city. Merchants and porters bustled at the docks, while aqueducts brought fresh water into the city daily. Every day, thousands of people were mobilized to clean the streets, ensuring the city remained clean and orderly. These factors made Tenochtitlan one of the most advanced and grandest cities of the ancient world. The Aztec civilization was deeply influenced by preceding cultures and possessed a rich mythological system. According to Aztec mythology, the world originated from Ometeotl, a dual-gendered deity representing both male and female essences, to known as Ometecutli, the Lord, and Omekehuatl, the Lady. From this union, they produced 4 sons, Sheep Totec, Tezcatlipoca, Quetzalcoatl, and Huitzilopochtli. All 4 gods bore the title of Tezcatlipoca, representing 4 different cardinal colors: red, blue, black, and white. Although there are multiple versions of the myth, the most popular version holds that the 4 brothers worked together to create the universe. The 4 gods were tasked with completing the creation. But Ometeotl had created Cipactli, a giant monster shaped like a cross between a crocodile and a frog, with teeth growing at every joint. Cipactli constantly devoured everything the gods created. To defeat it, Tezcatlipoca sacrificed his right foot as bait. Once the monster was destroyed, they used its body to shape the world. The head became heaven. The tail became the underworld, and the body became the earth, known as Semanahuac, meaning the land surrounded by water. Afterward, they created new gods to help govern the world, such as the rain god Tlaloc and the lord of the underworld, Mictlantecutli. Among the quartet, Sheep Totec, or the Red Tezcatlipoca, is less widely known. He was the god of metalworking, hunting, agriculture, and fertility, as well as the Lord of the East, characterized by his practice of flaying skins. His name translates to Our Lord, the Flayed One. Meanwhile, Huitzilopochtli, the Blue Tezcatlipoca, was the god of war, the sun, fire, and sacrifice, and the Lord of the South, as well as the most ferocious of the four. He once descended to earth to lead the Aztecs to their new homeland. Another story describes Huitzilopochtli's origin as the son of Coatlicue. One day, Coatlicue became pregnant after touching a ball of feathers on Coatepec Hill, also known as the Hill of the Serpent. Her other children accused her of dishonor and sought to kill her. However, Huitzilopochtli was born fully armed and defended his mother. He personally decapitated his sister Coyolxauhqui, and his 400 brothers fled in terror into the heavens. From then on, Huitzilopochtli became the sun god, protecting the earth from the stars, represented by his brothers and sister, the moon goddess, and their legions of demonic forces. Tezcatlipoca was the god of the night sky, ancestral memory, magic, and war, and the Lord of the North. He was considered the most mischievous and unpredictable deity in Aztec mythology. Yet he was also extremely just, revered as the supreme lord of the world. Opposing him was the white Tezcatlipoca, or Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, god of wind, light, wisdom, culture, and art, and the Lord of the West. He was also the creator of modern humanity. Interestingly, the name Quetzalcoatl was what the Aztecs called him, while the feathered serpent icon had been worshipped since the Olmec period, meaning the figure of Quetzalcoatl was at least 2,000 years old. Whether as brothers or opposing cosmic forces, Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca were in constant conflict, leading to major events in Aztec mythology across the 5 eras of the sun. The dispute between Tezcatlipoca and Quetzalcoatl was endless, and when unable to defeat his rival directly, Tezcatlipoca would devise clever tricks. Most famous was the event where he intoxicated Quetzalcoatl with pulque, leading him to sleep with his sister, Quetzalpetlatl, who was also intoxicated. This event led Quetzalcoatl to exile himself on a raft of serpents, sailing out into the ocean and promising to return one day, a tale bearing striking similarities to King Arthur, leaving Britain or the sleeping king in the mountain of German folklore. This legend later caused the Aztecs to hesitate to resist the Spanish, believing them to be emissaries of Quetzalcoatl. Because the Aztecs absorbed many legends from earlier cultures, they had multiple creation myths. The most famous story tells that before this world was made, there were 4 other worlds, each ruled by a different god. The first world was called the Son of the Jaguar. Tezcatlipoca ruled this world, and his subjects were a race of giants. Because Tezcatlipoca's sun was black, it could only provide 1/2 of the light. Out of anger, Quetzalcoatl struck Tezcatlipoca down, falling to earth. Tezcatlipoca transformed into a giant jaguar and devoured the entire world along with all its inhabitants. The second world was called the Son of the Wind. Quetzalcoatl ruled this world, and his subjects were humans. Still angry from his previous defeat, Tezcatlipoca struck Quetzalcoatl down. When Quetzalcoatl fell, a great hurricane arose and swept the entire world away. with the surviving inhabitants turning into monkeys. The third world was called the Son of Rain, ruled by the rain god Tlaloc. He ruled peacefully until Tezcatlipoca abducted his first wife, Xochiquetzal. Angered by this act, Tlaloc refused to send rain to the world. Quetzalcoatl then overthrew Tlaloc and demanded he reign upon the earth once more. Still furious, Tlaloc complied, but sent down a rain of fire instead, consuming the world in flames. The survivors were transformed into birds. The fourth world, known as the Son of Water, was ruled by Chalchihuitlicue, the goddess of water and the second wife of Tlaloc. Both Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca grew envious of her. So the two brothers conspired to overthrow Chalchihuitlicue, causing the entire world to drown in a massive flood. The survivors turned into fish. After all, 4 sons were destroyed and the world drowned. The gods set out to create a new world. According to legend, Tezcatlipoca sacrificed his foot to kill Cipactli, the giant monster. From the monster's carcass, the gods fashioned new lands. To create humans, Quetzalcoatl descended to Mictlan, the Aztec underworld, accompanied by Axolotl. Quetzalcoatl spoke with Mictlantecutli, the lord of the underworld, to retrieve the bones of past humans. Back on the surface, Quetzalcoatl used his own blood and the bones to fashion human shapes and buried them in the earth, from which mankind arose. However, the greatest problem remained: who would become the 5th son? The gods gathered at Teotihuacan to decide who would become the new son. 2 gods volunteered. The first was Tenochtitlan, who was wealthy and handsome. The second was Nanahuatzin, who was poor and diseased. To become the son, they had to leap into a sacrificial fire. Tenochtitlan tried several times, but hesitated and failed each time due to fear. Nanahuatzin, without hesitation, leaped into the flames. Seeing Nanahuatzin succeed, Tenochtitlan found his courage and leaped in after him. Both became sons. But because Nanahuatzin was braver, the gods decided that Nanahuatzin's son would shine brilliantly, while Tenochtitlan's son would remain pale and weak. However, Nanahuatzin's son was too heavy to move. So the gods sacrificed their own blood and hearts to provide energy to Quetzalcoatl so he could blow the sun across the sky day after day. From then on, the Aztecs performed human sacrifices and offered tributes to show gratitude to the gods who brought life and the morning light. Around the 13th century, in the Valley of Mexico, there lay a golden land that gradually became home to more than 1 million residents. The inhabitants called their land Anahuac, meaning the land between the waters. Anahuac witnessed the rise of various city-states. By the time the Aztecs arrived, the region was dominated by 2 main political powers, Culhuacan to the south and Azcapotzalco to the northeast. The Aztecs first arrived in this region as nomadic people. However, they never called themselves Aztecs. This name originates from the words Aztecatl and Aztec, meaning inhabitants of Aztlan. Aztlan was the ancestral homeland of the Aztecs and many other peoples around Anahuac. However, to this day, no one knows where Aztlan was located, and many believe it to be a mythical land. Instead, the Aztec people called themselves the Mexica. When they arrived in the crowded Valley of Mexico, they earned a living as mercenaries for the ruling nobles of Culhuacan and Azcapotzalco. One day, the Aztecs asked the king of Culhuacan for his daughter to serve as a sacrificial offering. Due to a language barrier, the king believed they wanted to arrange a political marriage and agreed. On the day the Culhuacan king arrived to attend the ceremony, what he encountered was a priest wearing the flayed skin of his daughter. Naturally, the furious king of Culhuacan ordered his forces to hunt down the Aztecs, expelling them from Culhuacan and driving them south of Lake Texcoco. There, overlooking a deep blue lake surrounding a small swampy island, the Aztecs saw the sign promised by their patron deity, the war god Huitzilopochtli, an eagle perched on a cactus, clutching a serpent in its talons. Seeing this sign, the Aztecs chose this spot as their home and began building the city of Tenochtitlan. After settling there for about 50 years, the Aztec community grew sufficiently developed to transition from a tribal organization to a monarchy. Their first king, Acamapichtli, spent most of his reign consolidating diplomatic relations with other states, remaining a tributary state and continuing to serve as mercenaries for Azcapotzalco. However, this relationship did not last long. Following several events, the Aztecs, along with two other city-states, Texcoco and Tlacopan, conquered and plundered Azcapotzalco. Together, they formed an alliance, with the Aztecs emerging as the most powerful force in the region. The alliance quickly defeated other powers and ruled a vast territory stretching from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. The Aztecs did not completely destroy their enemies. Instead, they forced them into submission, allowing them to keep their religion, but requiring them to recognize that the Aztec gods were superior. They also had to pay annual tributes to the Aztecs. While this made the Aztec Empire wealthy and powerful, it also caused the subjugated lands to hate the Aztecs rather than respect them. Following the reign of Acamapichtli, his grandson Montezuma I ascended the throne. He strengthened the alliance with the other two city-states and reformed the social and political institutions of the country. His brother and successor, Tlacaelel, not only expanded the territory northward into Mayan lands, but also propagated their religion, declaring the Aztecs to be the chosen people of the gods while implementing numerous reforms. Soon, the city of Tenochtitlan was expanded with many temples, pyramids, and grand public works, becoming increasingly wealthy and powerful. The Aztecs quickly overshadowed the other city-states in the alliance, turning them into vassals. By the early 16th century, the Aztecs ruled a vast territory with a population of 5 to 6 million people. The city of Tenochtitlan alone, at its peak, housed up to 250,000 inhabitants, making it the most populous city in Mesoamerica at the time. The territory of the Aztec Empire reached its maximum expansion under King Montezuma II, but at that exact moment of golden prosperity, they encountered their most dangerous adversary, the Spanish colonizers. At the beginning of the 16th century, the Spanish Empire, under the rule of King Charles V, who was also the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, began to eye the Americas, a land they believed to be rich in fertile soil, gold, and silver. From 1517 to 1519, the Spanish organized two expeditions, and although both ended in failure, they gathered valuable information and acquired translation guides. In 1519, the Spanish organized a third expedition, led by Hernan Cortés. With a crew of about 500 men, the court of King Montezuma II had heard rumors of foreigners, but when the Spanish arrived, the king was unsure how to handle them. When Cortés and his men received gifts and money from Montezuma II's emissaries, they realized just how wealthy the Aztec Empire was. Cortés quickly established the town of Villarrica de la Vera Cruz as a base of operations. He made alliances with local indigenous tribes and surrounding powers, striking a simple agreement if Cortés marched to the capital of Tenochtitlan. The vassals of the Aztec Empire would join him to overthrow Montezuma II. Initially, Cortés's goal was merely to establish a standard colony. But seeing the unique opportunity, he mobilized his forces to march on Tenochtitlan. Although ambushed by other regional forces along the way, through Cortés's perseverance, the Spanish eventually secured an alliance with the Tlaxcalans, the bitter enemies of the Aztecs, and marched toward Tenochtitlan, plundering the Aztec-allied city of Cholula along the way. When Cortés and the Spanish army entered Tenochtitlan, Montezuma II decided to allow them into the city, partly believing that the Spanish were emissaries of the god Quetzalcoatl. Cortés and his men were housed in a luxurious palace, but they soon realized their position was extremely precarious. The city was built on an island in Lake Texcoco, and the Spanish could easily be besieged or ambushed at any moment. Anxiety spread through the Spanish ranks, and they demanded that their commander withdraw. To appease his soldiers, Cortés met with Montezuma II and demanded that he persuade the Aztec people not to attack the Spanish. Ultimately, Montezuma II was imprisoned by Cortés in his own palace, becoming a hostage. While Cortés was attempting to consolidate his position in Tenochtitlan, internal strife broke out among the Spanish. The Spanish colonial government in Cuba, concerned about Cortés's ambitions, dispatched an army to arrest or eliminate him. Recognizing that his arrest would cut off his supply of gunpowder and weapons, the greatest advantage of the Spanish Cortés decided to leave Tenochtitlan with an interpreter and head back to Veracruz to resolve the conflict. He left a garrison in Tenochtitlan under the command of his deputy, Pedro de Alvarado, a man notorious for his cruelty. Without a skilled translator, tensions between the Spanish and the Aztecs escalated rapidly. Fearing an uprising, Alvarado decided to strike first. The opportunity came when Montezuma II asked Alvarado for permission to hold the festival of Toxcatl to honor the god Tezcatlipoca. Alvarado agreed, and while numerous Aztec warriors and nobles were celebrating inside the temple, Alvarado ordered his soldiers to charge in and slaughter them. Everyone attending the festival was killed, and this event was later known as the Alvarado Massacre, which occurred on May 22, 1520. By the time Cortés resolved his conflict and returned to Tenochtitlan with reinforcements, the situation had spiraled out of control, as the Aztecs had declared war on the Spanish. Cortés tried to force Montezuma II to order the Aztecs to stand down, but failed, and Montezuma II was killed during the chaos. With no other choice, Cortés attempted to withdraw from the city across the wooden causeways. However, they were ambushed when the Aztecs destroyed the bridges and attacked in force. Cortés managed to retreat, but suffered heavy losses. With hundreds of Spanish soldiers and 4,000 Tlaxcalan allies killed or captured, the Spanish called this event La Noche Triste, meaning the Night of Sorrows, while the Aztecs celebrated it as a glorious victory. Although it seemed the Spanish would have to retreat, an unexpected event occurred: a smallpox epidemic. The disease swept through Mesoamerica, severely weakening the Aztec Empire, as countless people died without immunity to the disease. After returning to Veracruz to stabilize his forces, Cortés led his army back to Tenochtitlan in May of 1521 and besieged the city, which was already ravaged by smallpox. The Aztecs resisted fiercely for 3 months, launching multiple counterattacks. but ultimately succumbed to the superior forces of the Spanish and their indigenous allies who harbored deep grudges against the Aztecs. Tenochtitlan fell on August 13, 1521. King Cuauhtémoc surrendered, marking the end of the powerful Aztec Empire. And that concludes the entire content of this account. If you found this video helpful, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.